When the police found the abandoned Jeep on Service Road 14B days later, something was terribly wrong. There's a saying in the Ozark Mountains, a place of rustic beauty stretching across Missouri and Arkansas. For tourists, it's a postcard, but for those who live there, for those who know the dirt roads and the deep hollows where the sun barely penetrates, the Ozarks hold secrets. And the saying, whispered at the last gas station before nowhere, is this: the woods keep what they catch. This is the story of what happened when two college students decided this rule didn't apply to them. It's the story of Mark Riley and Jessa Hayes, and the entity that the police refused to name, but that the locals know with a chill as the shadow in the Ozarks. Mark and Jessa were what you'd call adventure junkies. Students at the University of Missouri, they spent their weekends searching for the unknown. Mark was the engine of the relationship, always looking for the next secret trail or off-map campsite. Jessa, though more cautious, was drawn to his unshakable confidence. On an October Friday, the plan was to drive south for a weekend of canoeing on the Current River. It was a 3-hour drive, but Mark, as usual, had a better idea. He tapped the phone mount, showing the GPS. "I found a shortcut," he said. The map showed a thin yellow line cutting through a massive dark green patch of national forest. "It'll save us at least 40 minutes. Jessa looked out the window. The sun was already setting, painting the sky a sickly orange. "Mark, it's getting dark, and those roads, they look like service roads. Maybe we should stick to the main highway." Mark smiled, that smile that always convinced her, and hit the turn signal. "Trust me," he said. "Where's your sense of adventure?" "The adventure begins where the pavement ends." They left the well-lit highway and turned onto a 2-lane state road. 20 minutes later, that road turned to gravel. 10 minutes after that, it was little more than a packed dirt track with tree branches scratching at the sides of Mark's Jeep. The first to fail was the radio signal, replaced by crackling static. Then the GPS froze. Their car's arrow hovered motionless in a vast green nothingness. "Damn it," Mark muttered, tapping the phone. "No signal." Jessa started to say, "I told you so," but was cut off. A violent thud, a jolt that threw them both forward against their seatbelts. Mark slammed on the brakes, and the Jeep skidded to a halt in the mud. In the silence that followed, a new sound cut through the night, a rhythmic, sick hissing. The front right tire was dead. As Mark, frustrated, got out of the car, Jessa felt a chill that didn't come from the cold rain that was starting to fall. She remembered where they were an hour earlier, the last gas station, a single point of light with a rusty pump and a failing neon sign that buzzed G.S. and Bait. While Mark filled the tank, Jessa went inside for water. The man behind the counter was old, with skin like tanned leather and eyes that looked like they'd seen too much. He didn't say hello, he just watched Jessa as she grabbed 2 bottles of water. "Where you kids headed in such a hurry?" His voice was like gravel being dragged. Jessa forced a smile. "Oh, just camping near the river." The man shook his head slowly. "You're taking the highway, right? Don't take the Ridge Road, not after dark." "Why?" Jessa asked, her curiosity winning out over her discomfort. "Because the Ridge doesn't like strangers," he said, taking her money. "Things up there, older than the trees, things that get hungry." He looked past her out the window at Mark, who was drumming on the car roof to a song. "You tell your boyfriend to keep his tires on the pavement. The woods keep what they catch." Jessa left quickly, brushing off the comment as the ramblings of an old local. Now, standing on the dark road, the man's words echoed in her mind. Okay, no panic," Mark said, his voice an octave higher than usual. He flicked on his flashlight. The rain was turning from a drizzle into a cold downpour. The beam of light hit the tire, and Jessa's heart sank. The tire wasn't just flat, it was shredded. There was a long, ragged gash in the sidewall, as if they had driven over a blade of metal. "What about the spare?" Jessa asked, huddled in the doorway. Mark shone the light under the car. The spare, which he had never checked, was as flat and rotten as forgotten fruit. It was useless. They were stranded. No cell signal. Miles from the main highway. The darkness was total. "We have to walk," Mark said. "We can't stay here. We'll freeze." "Walk where, Mark? We don't even know where we are." "Back, the way we came. We must have passed a house or something." Hesitantly, they grabbed their day packs, locked the car, a futile gesture, and started the long trudge back up the muddy road. For almost an hour, the only sound was the rain, the squelch of their steps in the mud, and the drip of the trees. And then they heard it. It was low at first, a sound Jessa thought was the wind, but it came again, closer, a howl. But it wasn't the howl of a wolf or a coyote. It was deeper, more guttural, and it ended in a high-pitched scream that sounded chillingly human. A sound of pain and rage mixed together. "What was that?" Jessa whispered, stopping. "Coyote," Mark said unconvincingly. "Keep walking." The sound came again, this time seeming to come from the woods to their left, and then it was answered by another sound to their right. They weren't alone, and they were being flanked. Panic set in. They started to run, slipping and sliding in the mud. Mark's flashlight beam swung wildly, illuminating distorted shapes of trees that looked like grasping claws. It was Jessa who saw it first, a silhouette against the tree line where there should have been only empty space. She stopped, breathless, grabbing Mark's arm. He followed her gaze and froze. Against the deeper darkness of the forest, something was standing. It was tall, incredibly thin, and seemed darker than the night itself. A humanoid shape that made no sense, a two-dimensional silhouette watching them in silence. Mark Riley and Jessa Hayes never made it off that road. When the police found the abandoned Jeep days later, the shredded tire and the rotten spare told the story of how they got stranded. But what happened to them after they started walking, what hunted them on that rainy night, remains a secret the forest decided to keep. In the Ozarks, some roads just shouldn't be taken, and some shortcuts don't save you time. They just lead you away from the light, into the heart of the darkness, where the shadow waits patiently for what the woods decide to catch.